Tracking the footsteps of pioneers, outlaws, and entrepreneurs of the early American West is never easy. History, tall tales of treasure, conquest, legend, and the many chance encounters that once occurred are fleeing from public knowledge as time presses on. Today, we are following a unique set of events that occurred over 120 years ago, along a crucial transportation corridor that now lies abandoned. The old Northern Pacific Railroad and its now dormant tracks and worn infrastructure indeed would talk if they could. Armed with a newspaper clipping from 1907, documenting a little-known train heist gone terribly wrong, I set out to find the location for myself, amongst the rugged mountains and rocky ravines this historic railway calls home. However, I quickly learned there's more than meets the eye with the information I had available, and the location I ultimately stumbled upon. So the article goes, May 7th, the North Coast Limited eastbound train, number 22, on the Northern Pacific Railway was held up by two masked men, near where we're at right now. All around us, there is the Northern Pacific Rail Line, a historic rail line left for abandon. And I'm going to give you some overhead aerial views and so forth, but it's snaking through some of the most rugged country, the harshest country I've ever seen a railroad build on. There's spur lines, there's tunnels, there's everything, which we've covered extensively. But as the article goes on, it's written kind of funny just due to the date of it. 1907, this robbery occurred, and you very rarely catch any of this sort of stuff going all the way back to the New York Times in 1907. So this was a pretty big deal. Now, the spur line, a siding 18 miles east of town at 2:15 o'clock this morning. Engineer James Clown was shot and killed, and fireman James Sullivan was shot through the arm, making an attempt to blow up the express car, as was evidently intended. The robbers then jumped off the train, so they hopped onto the train, and this site's very close to us. The gunmen, the outlaws probably passed through this exact area we have camp set up at, and there's just miles of track to cover along with this story. But as we evidently intended, the robbers jumped from the engine and ran down the mountainside, disappearing into a gulch several hundred yards from the track. Sheriff Henderson and Sheriff Webb of Yellowstone County started on trail of the holdup men 5 minutes after the shooting. All track was lost. And this is how it's written in the article, like it was a telegram that was sent to New York. And it says, on the tender of the locomotive was found a telescope grip full of giant powder, evidently intended for use in blowing up the express car 1 mile west of Welch. The men crawled over the tender and commanded the engineer to stop. He was made a show of resistance and was killed instantly. The country where the holdup took place is extremely rough, being 6 miles from the summit of a main range in the Rocky Mountains. So, as we're moving down the old Northern Pacific line, this isn't in operation, but there's a cattle guard cutting through the rails. I thought that was pretty cool and wanted to show you guys before we press on. There are so many features to this track, and it is so scraggly and rugged. It's amazing. Just the effort in, the early or late 1800s to install this and to run it right through a mountain. It's insane. But you look at this is a cattle guard. It's not in use now. There's no fencing tying it in, but that's pretty cool. This is a great slice of track here. Really happy to be on it and sharing it with you guys. just a lot to come from this little adventure here today. It's so cool. In these rock formations are just mind-blowing as well. This rail line just cut right through here, and the grade's gonna change as we go on and so forth. This is a great little shot here. See that curvature? Look at that. Amazing, amazing. And this is why I love the Northern Pacific. This is probably the harshest build of a transcontinental railroad in the late 1800s, pre-industrialization, you know. So this is really historic, and it's amazing. This was all done without power tools, all done by hand, moved by wagon and train. Of course, they'd lay the track and the shipments would follow them as they kept going. But we're gonna find some camps here from the railroad workers and just admire this beauty. Really is a stunning line. Happy to share it with you guys. Let's keep pushing forward. So as we go through here, this is more of that scat. Now, if you remember our previous explore on the westward side of the Northern Pacific, we think we suspected some mountain lion scat, and I'm not sure, this could, but there's hair and it's white. And that white coloration normally doesn't happen in other mammals just due to the mountain lion's diet of calcium. They'll eat bones. Sometimes if it's a big enough scat pile and they don't bury it, you can dig through it. And if it's a scratch pile kind of thing where they let other cats know they're in the area, you can dig through it and pull out claws, you know, from them tussling with other toms or whatever sort of territory dispute they've had in the area. So I suspect that's what that scat is, just due to the color and there being a lot of hair. Now, coyotes will eat rodents and so forth, but I've never seen it turn white. And that's just a lot of calcium, especially here in this area. Like, maybe there's a coyote running through here, but to me, see all those tracks down there too? To me, this is cat country, cat and black bear. And they're moving. I haven't seen a definitive sign of them moving around every day. Greta! But they're definitely poking around and about. This track is just awesome. So you see the difference of terrain. Now, this is, people are probably seeing me and thinking this guy's crazy, but look at this. It's cutting right through a mountainside. Just amazing. Now, as we're moving along, another fantastic feature here is the old lines here. There's some sort of power line system here, and they are still standing, and they still have their rigging for wind protection, which is just fantastic. You don't see this a lot. Just awesome. Take a look at that. There's another here. Towards the start of this hike, I actually saw wire. I was connecting them. Just boulders everywhere. This would have just been insane just to see this progress. So there was no road. It was all horseback at that time. And I don't know if that's what amazes me more, or the fact this was all done by hand. Even with modern conveniences, this would have been monumental if this was announced. If we wouldn't see this ever again today. This is a thing of the past, and it's a marvel. Truly is. It's a lost marvel. But no one would attempt this. I mean, this is just so harsh. And as we keep getting on, it's going to get worse. There's some grade climb coming up, and it's just spectacular. All these formations as well. So when we get to the site of the robbery as well, I'm thinking we will find original rail from the 1800s on that spur line the train heist was conducted at. And that's something big I want to discover, because I'm not sure if it was refabbed, but I can't find anything else about that train robbery except that one article. And I'm really excited just to see the terrain, how these guys moved around, how the heist started. It must have been just an opportune placement if there were 4 robberies in the span of a couple years on this track here, an old Northern Pacific track. So hands down, we are approaching one of the most unique features of this mountain pass, and we're going to come out the other side, but this is a really cool little cut. They didn't choose to blast through the boulders here. As I'm following this entire rock wall along this track, there is a very small short tunnel right up here, and just look at this. It almost looks fake. So you see that? Isn't that spectacular? And some of this rock is just so rough, and now you can see why they chose to bore through it rather than blow it. It's just solid. Just solid rock. It's nice and cool back here. Oh, look at the old line. Right there, there's an old telephone line. Just spectacular. You can make out as well some notches on the rock there. That's all from chipping, unless a train scored the side of it. Look at it. It's just this rock outcropping, and there are some timbers as well right here. Very old timbers, more notches, more notching, and it's deep. That might have been blast holes. It might have been core. Yeah, I'm starting to see this all over. And look at size perception. That's Greta. This is just awesome. Well, you see it. Isn't that crazy? Something hauled in a lot of sticks or something. I don't know what that is. Just a lot of blowing. Really fantastic feature for this line. Super cool. Now let's get a look at it. Oh wow. I think the other side is a bit more dramatic. It exposes a lot of depth. That is a really cool little short tunnel. There is still some coal or steam engine damaged here. I wonder what the arrow is. An arrow. It might just be soot. Someone marking out the soot. It says 35. Yeah, and there's multiple core holes right above here. So they had some sort of air compressor system for a core drill when they built this. Truly fantastic. We're gonna cut back over to the other side. Just gonna get some drone shots of this. It's an amazing tunnel. Amazing. So I just wanted to walk you guys through this cut here. It is beautiful, and there's two different types of rock. So you see the red stain irony rock here, and then some granite basement rock. It's just a really cool little cut. Now shortly we should be coming up on a valley, sort of like a really steep grade that's going to take us right out of this mountain pass essentially. So we've been walking here a few miles, still doing good, and we're getting closer to the site of the robbery. It's just really pristine back here. This is a great track. So we're coming out of the cut here. Just a gnarly cut. Unbelievable. But we're greeted by the valley. So pretty. Just gorgeous. And this train would have rode through here with people heading west. Just on this same track. Out in the 1880s, they would have been out through here. These monstrous boulders. Get lost in them. So quiet up here. So we're still following the grade. Look at this chunk of spine. It's pretty old. Got pretty porous, but that's a pretty big chunk. And our landscape's changing a bit up here. See the rock outcroppings over there. A lot of basement rock, a lot of granite, really porous granite, bad granite, but for some reason these birch tree outcroppings just so isolated. Give me almost an eerie feeling. It's the only thing with color right now, except the pines, of course, but isn't that interesting? Look all around me. There's just this little outcropping of birch trees, and they're very healthy looking. Usually they don't grow that tall. They're competing with the pines. And we're still on the old Northern Pacific. What a beautiful day. You having a good time, Greta? Huh? She wants to find a creek. I got water for her, but we're so deep in, might as well conserve. There's a creek up here. And we should be close to our destination. The site of the train robbery. And I'm thinking it'll lead us to more. Especially if there was a robbery up here, there had to have been some sort of host structure, or village, or something like that. Look at this casualty. Clean cut. It's an old line from the Northern Pacific, and you can tell it's truly old because this is raw pine. These were all lodgepole that this whole electrical system was fastened to. And there's another stump sticking up over there. Insulators are wood. This rock here looks broken up though. We know a lot about mining and explore a lot of places. This looks like a, yeah, look at this. This is unique. Look at the quartz on this. So it's granite with quartz deposits. I don't know if you can see them. This looks like it was dumped. Oh. I reckon that was from the telephone pole there. Yeah, there's something around here. See, more quartz. It's pretty prominent. That's a healthy chunk of quartz as well. Oh, it's got some shine to it. I bet you refine that, break it up, you'll have trace amounts of gold. Nothing worthwhile for a heavy mining operation. This is an interesting little outcrop here. Yeah, look at, there's another post right there. Interesting spot. And I'm seeing the old power line all the way down here. It's running all the way down to that other post, right over there in the distance. So we're reaching a much older track section. Really sagey too. A lot of sagebrush wraps around you. Walking's a bit more difficult. So we got a track date there. If you can see it, that's 1947. Right there. Look at this. What is this? Just way out here. No man's land. You can definitely tell how the track's getting older. Use was more limited here than in other places for whatever reason. The landscape's kind of turning Martian. Really interesting. So we have another signal. This one's not nearly as intact as the others we've seen today. Interesting. There's still wire coming off of it though. That's a ground. That's what that is. See how it's hooked up there? If lightning strikes it, it grounds it. There's something there too. Even the concrete pour has got like a Art Deco kind of style to it, recessed. Oh, we're at the spur. This is the spur. Okay. Interesting. So there's all this stuff floating about. There's a house there. There's some sort of shed. Wow. This was lever. It's a track switch for the spur. Huh. Isn't this cool? (1919). This track's from 1919. So the Northern Pacific was in operation on this track. 1919 is the date. Let's see. Before we investigate the site more, let's see. This one's 1920. Wow. I can't make out what that says. Jack, Ohio. Jack A.W. Anna. 1920. I don't know if the camera can make them out, but there's buzzards circling down there. Something is left over for scrap. This is really old. That's like original. That's from the Wild West there. This barbed wire is for sure. Some really cool rocks. So if I'm correct, now the article reads May 7th, the North Coast Limited. May 7th, the North Coast Limited eastbound train number 22 on the Northern Pacific Railway was held up by two masked men near the spur. So it might have happened at this junction, and the train was stopped, and it was probably a manual switch that the train was on, and they waited for them to switch it because the locomotive, I'm assuming, stopped before the spur, and someone got out to switch the track. It was somewhere around here. Something happened around here. Jumped the engine, so once they shot the driver, they got spooked and jumped the engine and headed down the mountainside. I'm thinking the mountainside is this. They headed down this gully here, this low land, because you got to remember, everything was horse at the time this was, so this would have been a horse trail. This would have been plowed enough by people coming up here prospecting or doing whatever they were doing, hunting for food. And this whole spur line here, or rail bed down here, this would have been horse. And they probably hitched their horses somewhere in this coverage, which is really interesting. So two masked men jumped a Northern Pacific locomotive right here and proceeded to jump off after they killed the innocent man and head down this gully. I'm thinking they used this gully and they had their horses hitched and they hopped back onto a horse trail farther down this area. So they were definitely in this stuff here. And they probably stopped the train right here before they were going to go over on this spur line and head to a quarry. So this was a granite quarry. And we're going to follow this spur line to the granite quarry. But near the spur line, that's where the heist happened. And that's what we can probably deduce from this manual switch over here. Where is it? It's somewhere around here. And that would have been the original. And that came later with the Hiawatha line, I think. Right here. So this is definitely built in to the spur setting. And I'm assuming someone got out. The train was here, headed east. It was going to go up this spur line. We still got a ways to go down the canyon. But this here would have been weatherized. It's all coming together now. So you see this is that switch for the spur was clearly weatherized. That is an old Northern Pacific shed. It encapsulated that spur switch. So someone got out, walked over here, and as soon as they both got back onto the train, right down there in this cover, the masked men came over this berm, tried to rob the train. They refused. Again, it was the 4th time this happened, and there was a casualty in an incident. See, there's still stuff all over up here from it. And they had their horses hitched down there, ran down the mountain, and got away. Got away temporarily. One was caught in Sandpoint, Idaho, by a sheriff's posse. How they tracked him from here to there, there must have been an APB put out. But one was caught, the second never was, as far as the article goes. And that's the information we have. It's extremely intriguing how this unfolded. And it is a remote country. Someone came up here and tried to pull a heist on this train for the 4th time. Now, if they're all connected, which I'm assuming they are, incredibly interesting. Incredibly interesting. So this is our spur, and we're going to follow this to whatever riches they assumed would be on this train, because it was going to the spur. So it was probably loaded with cash to pay for whatever goods. I'm just assuming, I don't know. Maybe they were just robbing the conductor, but again, incredibly interesting. And I'm going to try to find a better date stamp on this as well. We'll find it as we go up further. You can tell this has weather. This rail's over 100 years old right now. So that gives us a hint as well. New rail was put in. The robbery happened 1907. New rail was put in 1920, 1921 at the very least. That's the date I got off of it. This track here is 49. But this spur is 1920. So as well, another thing I want to point out, as we're going further down here, we're walking between the main Northern Pacific and the spur. But what's interesting is you can see the different shape of the rail. They both had the same standard as far as locomotives, but this is way rougher. This is a cast, okay? See how that's different? Isn't that interesting? And it's stamped with just an R. The rest is weathered away. But this is old Northern Pacific rail. There's a few artifacts scattered about. There's some rusty old plates. And a lot of this you can tell is handcrafted too. That pitting isn't from rust. That's from shaping the iron. That's from getting that iron molten hot and shaping it into what you want. And this is our dead end here. This is where the spur terminates. Looks like it was banked with just a lot of dirt. We're going to keep following this main line. We should see the granite quarry as we get closer. It's going to turn back into some rough country here in a minute, which is fine. What do we got here? Old belt of some sorts. I can see a post over there as well. I'll keep you posted as we get closer. See what we run into. So we found ourselves in a strange spot here, right off the side of the railroad. I noticed just trash. This was an old heater, old wood stove out of a drum there. And there's a shack that's completely dropped. But you can tell it had some sort of function with the Northern Pacific. You see it? That's the track. And there's stuff all over. Rail ties, heater. Pretty cool. And this is on our way to the next destination. This canyon is just gorgeous. I'm gonna take a minute and just share this with you. There's like a waterfall down there. You hear it? Some of the most pristine track I've followed. This is amazing. Look how beautiful it is. Wow. So there is a mill back here. This was an old quarry. This is why the train was being robbed. Now I know she needs water. We got to get down there to that stream. But this is just obscene. It's obscene this track is not being used for even just leisure purpose. It's the most pristine track I've followed. We've been on a lot of tracks and this is just gorgeous back here. You can see some of the rocks are starting to get chunked. Those are rough dressed rocks right there. That's granite. Look over here.
These rocks too are almost a perfect circle. You can tell this was an old road out of here, in and out. So it was just a hill we were on. This is insane looking. It's almost like a footpath right here. There's a huge boulder up there. Really weird. It's flat and everything. This place is surreal, guys. It's really weird. Look at this, it wraps all the way around. I want to go see that big boulder. This is slabbed granite. We're getting close to the mill. See how perfect it is? Look at that face. All this looks man-made. It's really weird. Look at these. There's chunks of granite. I do believe I am on a deer run right now. I'm finding fresh droppings like they were here today. So that's always nice. See how it's all tore up right here. They've just been running, trampling through here. Quite frequently. Wow, look at these boulders. This is insane. I keep getting fooled like that's a roadway up there, but it's not. It's just where the rock's hanging. Yeah, see, this is very fresh. That is like within the hour. What? Quit your belly aching. And we gotta squeeze through here. Wow. So I really got out of the brush, and this is what it opens up to. This is the old quarry. Look at the rock. This is what the robbers were trying to rob when they robbed that train. This train was headed to the quarry to pick up a load, and I'm assuming it had a lot of cash on board. And it's really wild looking. Like way up there, it's just slabs, just layered slabs all over. And I think this would have been the spur line had it continued. But look at some of these dressed rocks just sitting here. These would have been loaded up on train from here. You can still see some of the indentations of where they worked it and dressed it. They're gonna export this granite. This whole area, that must have been just poor granite right there, bad granite they didn't want. But you can see it just protruding out of the cliffside. It's pretty wild. And it's all over just little chunks of it. So this must have been where they'd move it. There must have been a rail line that just clean went through this. Yeah. That's crazy. I wonder if there's fish in there. Maybe some bluegill? How interesting is that? Unless that brook powered some sort of water wheel. can see the rock still left over here. Wow. Look at this little cutout. It's made with the granite here. So wandering around, I did find some rail ties as well. They must have been, they had some sort of a winch because there's a line I saw with the drone that goes all the way up the side of that cliff. Right here. Here's a winch. Oh. Whoa. That's really cool. That had to have been a wheelhouse. And we're scat. A lot of it. But that was some sort of wheelhouse back here. What is this? There's something back here. Oh wow. This is really fresh scat. There's even a bed. See the wire bed frame? This is a crazy little hut. I wonder if this was a wheelhouse. A lot of droppings. They must use this to bed down elk or moose. Snow's still pretty deep too. There's wood in between this granite. They built everything down here with granite. Yeah, watch yourself. Come on. Come on. Look how that's boarded up with a... Whoa, look at that fireplace. It's an old granite fireplace. That's cool. This is moose. That's exactly what this is. This is moose. That's very fresh. I bet you the drone pushed him out of here. But you can see it. It's a granite fireplace. And they reinforced this with wood. Oh man, there's still ashes in there. That is crazy. More droppings here. That little window. That is too cool. I've never seen that before. This is a really cool area. It's crazy. You can even see at some point where there was just a rudimentary little bridge right here, made out of railroad ties. You see the sparkle in there? It looks like it's gold, but it's probably pyrite and stuff. That's pretty crazy. There's a moose back here for sure. Look at this little walkway. Well, friends, thanks for tagging along. We're making good time today, and that concludes our adventure. If I come across anything else on the trail, I'll let you know. Happy to share today with you, and I appreciate your time. I hope today's treating you well, and look forward to many more days like this. Thank you. Thank you. Take care, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks, guys.
Had stories about the city life and the crazy nights. Figure I should probably give it a try. Maybe check it out, see what it's all about. But the traffic was fast and the money was slow. The people I met you never get to know. I kinda miss this place I used to live back home. 'Cause up here